Hey guys, as Recon back here to with another video. Today we're going to be talking about a new player experience in Destiny 2, and I'm going to be helping you actually create a player guide. You can kind of follow these videos along in a playlist. Now, if you're watching this video right now, it probably might be the first one up because it'll be the first one up today, but I'll kind of get more of them out as we go along. Today, I strictly want to cover just the three main classes of the game, kind of show you the ins and outs in a little bit, kind of how they play, different subclasses and things like that, and what you can do. Now, obviously, as you can see on my screen here, I primarily have one class I play a lot, which would be my Titan. It has the highest gear score in comparison to the rest of them. So we're going to start with them first just because I've played a lot of Titan. It's been my main for about a couple months. Each one of them play a little different, and I'll kind of give you an overview of them as I go. Um, I won't get into stat distributions or anything like that for armor. This is strictly just to cover the basis of the class, kind of how they play, things like that. As you can see, when we first load into Destiny 2, there's this big plethora of menus and things like that. These little icons here on the map will typically show you, okay, you have some sort of activity you can do there. So we're going to hover over Vanguard, right? Here, Nightfall, Weekly, all that. We'll cover all that in another video. We're going to go ahead. We're just going to load into the Cosmodrome here. Second to load up. Now, the one thing I do want to talk about is your subclasses as we load in here. There's light and dark subclasses. Now, for players that may have just started picking up the game, the dark subclass thing will not really apply to you as much because you do have to have Beyond Light to get access to that, and you have to beat the campaign. That is the important part for them. So for right now, we're just going to primarily focus on the three, and then I'll talk about Sentinel. I'll talk about the Darkness later on. So we're going to start with Sentinel first, though. Sentinel is your Void subclass. There's three. Now there's
Titan?
four elements in the game right now. One dark, three light. Void, Solar, Arc, Stasis. Now there'll be a new one coming out next expansion, which will be called Strand. We won't cover that in this video right now because it's not relevant. Void Titan primarily is used for putting up barricades to give yourself an overshield. You can use your Titan Super. One of them lets you use a Ward of Dawn, which will let you give your teammates a weapons light buff. And you can even do things like knock your shield off walls and be Captain America, because who doesn't want to be Captain America? Look at that, that was cool. On the left-hand corner of your screen, you will have your boosts. Any buffs, debuffs, things like that, and they'll be kind of stacked in a particular order. We can cover that in our video as well. We're going to go find a couple enemies to kill here. This probably could have been better, but hey, it's fine. I kind of like to freeform it anyway. Give you the real experience. So for example, every class has a grenade, right? Titan, you throw a grenade, Void grenade I have set up is called pulling effect, and I have mods to give me these things called elemental weapons, so we'll cover those. But the idea is that when that procs, I get this thing called Devour. That only applies on Devour, volatile rounds. That only applies on Void weapons, and it only applies whenever I deal damage with my grenade. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, okay, Airbnb, you have a grenade launcher. Wouldn't that theoretically work on that? No, it does not. It only works with your Void grenade. So, like, if I go out here, right, I'm going to throw volatile rounds. Cool. Volatile rounds, you can use them normally, but it won't matter because it's not a Void weapon. You can get the buff from the Void weapon. That's important to notate. Rally Barricade. Well, there's Rally Barricade, there's Sentinel Barricade, I think that's the name of it. I'm not using Rally, I'm using the other one. This allows me just to have an overshield whenever I put it down. Now, you boot up the game, you kind of start playing. You only have one subclass to unlock. As you go along, you will get more. You can, it's Tower Barricade. You can choose different barricades that you want. You can even see the base cooldown on it. Create a large barrier of cover. Reinforce positional cover from fire, so you can put it down if you need to get shot at. There's different lifts or jumps. So as a character in this game, you can jetpack around a little bit, unless you're a hunter. Sorry, hunters, you can't do that. The only thing you guys can do is double jump, which I'm still kind of envious of. But you can normal jump, and you can also do that too. Another thing to rotate as well, if we go and look at our abilities, my melee ability is shield throw. Every class gets a melee ability and a grenade ability. Now, sometimes you can get 2 charges of grenade ability. I think with Warlock, I think there's a way to get 2 melee charges. I'm not exactly sure. It's a long time since I played Warlock. I don't know. Now, as you can see, for melee, we only probably get about 2 different ones, right? We get the shield throw, which is what I showed you, and shield bash. Now, shield bash is a little different. It's pretty much like you charging into the enemy, but you do get an overshield, and it can suppress the target. Now, it even tells you what the keywords do over here in the top left-hand corner. So make sure you do pay attention to that, especially if you're trying to do build crafting and stuff, which you can figure out later on. I won't necessarily. I'll probably do a video on that later, but not important right now. So suppression, it takes the target taken out of the active abilities cannot activate abilities and movement nodes while suppression persists. Affected combatants cannot fire their weapons. So literally, it's just they can't do anything. You can just go hog wild. Note this doesn't work on some enemies. A lot of bigger enemies like bosses, obviously that's not gonna work. Anything that's like a normal enemy though, this should be fine. Even I think champions to some extent, but I think they gotta be stunned first. Champions is a high-end content thing. We're not worried about that right now. Also, every class now has aspects, which are more like buffs for your class that lets you fixate into a playstyle you want. Like the volatile rounds are controlled demolition. Hitting a target with a void ability or volatile explosion makes them volatile. Further damage to the volatile target causes them to explode, granting nearby allies health when volatile round charges explode near you. Bastion. Cast your super to grant overshield to nearby allies. Cast your barricade grants overshield to yourself and nearby allies and powers them to slowly generate overshield and allies bunking behind an extended duration. So this is more of like a supporting class. It's kind of how I built it. And I notice there's another fragment here called Offensive Bulwark. While you have Dawn Overshield, instead of War of Dawn, your grenade charges simply faster and you have increased melee range and damage. And melee final blows and extended duration of your overshield, so you can kind of be more passive. And then there's fragments, which gives you buffs on top of that. Your void grenades weaken targets, melee final blows grant energy, defeating targets with grenades and volatile rounds with weapons. Things like that. Now, I'm not going to go too much into these. You can kind of read these on your own if you want to later on. Because let me make a separate video about just fragments. That'd be like 30 minutes by itself. Okay? I realize I'm getting shocked right now. That's ridiculous. We'll go ahead and kind of just reinvent what I just did. We'll throw a grenade. I see he's getting pulled in by the effect, right? Cool, I have volatile rounds. Now, if you notice, the enemy that I shot there, they end up having a little circle around. That's why, volatile. Alright, go ahead and now cover Striker Titan. Now, Striker Titan is going to be more about trying to move as fast as possible while using arc abilities, arc damage, etc. I do highly recommend that when you're doing this, I know a lot of people, they kind of like to pair whatever subclass with at least the subclass weapon type that they're using, because you do get some advantages to that with weapon mods. However, you can kind of use what you want. So long as you at least have one damage type of your subclass, I think you'll be okay. I'm not going to cover weapon mods or anything, just because this information will be outdated by the time February 27th comes around, and I'll wait till then to kind of do more of a mod video. This is just a parameter, just to kind of cover aspects, fragments, things like that. Now, if you notice, when I put down my barricade, I don't get an overshield, right? Well, that's because Arc Titan doesn't necessarily get that. You don't get overshield. My Arc Titan build is more about just throwing grenades, like lightning strikes and things like that. Also, melee is a little different. Charge melee that does more damage. The entire idea of this class, is how I play it, is I can move fast because of the speed booster, because I'm killing the enemy with an arc ability, right? As long as I'm moving, I still keep this build, 100%. And I can even jump in the air, I can throw the grenade down and keep moving. And when I throw a grenade, it activated Spark of Ions cooldown, which Spark of Ions creates a tether that comes to me. When it comes to me, I get more energy. Things like that. This is definitely more for crowd control and being able to move fast and stay in the fight. nothing too crazy. We'll kind of do a quick overview of the same thing we did last time. Now, while your for all your classes, your barricade and your jump will always stay the same. That's never going to change. For melee, the names will change, and some classes will get 2, some will get 3. Thunderclap is what you just saw. Ballistic Slam is more of a airborne melee, so you jump in the air, and then you hit the button, and you hold it down. I probably will show that off, but we kind of got to wait first. Actually, I have to wait for a couple. Cool. Usually when you change that. Anyway, so if I just hit right bumper or B, or whatever button your melee key is, it doesn't do anything, right? In the air. Works. Airborne only melee. Does not work on the ground. Shoulder charge, the seismic strike. For Titan, pretty much universally, if you call it a melee, you can call it shoulder charge, call it whatever you want. But for these kinds of melees, I just call them that because that's just what I've known them as, necessarily. And we'll be making a separate video on a couple other things as well, but I kind of just wanted to cover the basics for classes and stuff right now. I don't want to get too into the nitty gritty on things because it could be like an hour-long video and whatever. You won't wet for my subtests. We'll kind of keep talking. So, then your grenades. Tons of different grenades. You can pick which one, a plethora of them you choose from. Flashing grenades blind nearby targets. And you might think suppression and blind are the same. Well, they're not based upon the keyword, right? Combatants are disoriented and cannot fire their weapons. Opposing players' HUD removed from their vision is obscured. So this kind of has more of a PvP effect. I mean, they all have PvP effects, right? Blind is a little different, though, because they can still use abilities. That's the big thing to notate here. They can still use abilities whenever they hit by this. Unlike suppression, they can't do anything. You might ask yourself, well, why not just use that? Well, there's bonuses to using flashbang and other things. Lightning grenades sticks to a surface, emits a bolt of lightning. Pulse grenade, it's literally similar to that, except it doesn't stick to the wall or anything. If you throw it at a wall, it'll bounce right off. Skip grenades, they split upon impact and can seek multiple targets. And then storm grenades, which is what I've been using, is this cool lightning strike that I throw out, and you can kind of see it fall down. And then, shoulder charge is charged. I'll kind of show this one. So the cool thing about shoulder charge, you'll see here, my melee comes back after using it. Because I haven't hit an enemy yet. Hit an enemy, melee's gone. But I get buffs for doing it. And if you notice, my abilities are charging faster. That's because of an exotic armor piece on it. Doesn't have necessarily anything to do with it. Now, again, aspects and fragments are going to be a little bit different. The Touch of Thunder, it improves your grenades. And it tells you what each one of those do. You can pause the video to kind of read that if you want to. I'm not going to go too much into that. The main things to notate here are Jolted. The target is charged with destructive arc light. As they take additional damage while jolted, they chain lightning nearby enemies. This is very important if you're going to be fighting mobs of enemies. Kind of like I said, this class is very crowd control effective. You hit a big enemy with a debuff, hit all the enemies around it, they all get shocked, and if they're a red bar, they're probably going to die. Like this. Cause blinding on enemies as well. And then the Ionic Trace, which is what you get whenever you kill an enemy. It has a chance to spawn an Ionic Trace as long as you kill it with an arc ability. A bowl of pure arc energy travels along the ground so you can charge your creator when picked up. It grants ability energy, and I think it starts with the lowest one. So if you only have one ability, it's on cooldown. That's the one that gets the recharge buff. Congratulations. Alright, we have Knockout. Your movement speed and weapon handling are greatly increased after sprinting for a short time. Your movement speed is further increased. Rapidly defeating targets with arc energy will make you amped. And that's what I like to use, because I like to be in the fight. Juggernaut's pretty cool because you get a shield while sprinting. While amplified, the shield significantly can take more damage than being broken. Don't really care for this one personally. I've used it a few times. Don't really. And then there's different fragments and aspects, things like that, that will kind of buff your abilities. And defeating a jolted target will create an Ionic Trace for you. You can do things to guarantee that. Things to guarantee to increase the grenade time. Defeating blinded enemies with precision damage creates a blinding explosion to blind more enemy around you. And if you noticed, some fragments give you debuffs to your stats and buffs to your stats. We'll cover stats in a whole separate video. Not going to go too much into that because that's going to be a whole hodgepodge of things. Done with that, we'll cover good old Sunbreak. Solar type. Let me ask, the first two classes seem pretty grenade focused, right? Kind of somewhat. You could also probably argue that Arc's probably more melee focused. What does this class do? Well, it's actually a question. See here. Barricades kind of, you know, somewhere. Got rally barricades, smaller one. Now, I use fusion grenades on this class. Fusion grenades are pretty much like stickies from like Halo. Wow, what's this fire tornado? Well, that is called a sunspot. Solar Titans have the ability to create sunspots when killing enemies with their abilities. So, like for this, for example, Titans, Solar Titan, you can either get a hammer or a shoulder charge. Shoulder charge is more of a dive. If you kind of slide and then you activate the ability, or you can just shoulder charge into them, kind of like we did with Arc earlier, and you can do some nifty stuff with that. Maybe ask yourself, alright, what happens if you throw your hammer and you lose it? Solar Titan's hammer is his most precious thing. This is referred to as bonk type. Serotonin. Infinitely. I can do this all day. Now, big things to notate about Sun Titan. Solar Titan, rather. Sun Titan's funny, though. It's more of a tanky class that can have crowd control. Especially with your melees. Now, one thing to notice here, I don't have that slide effect, right? We just talked about it. Well, if we go in here and look, here. I believe it's tied to a fragment. Yeah, right here. Concentration. So you can see here, while sliding, activate your charged melee ability to launch a wave of solar energy forward, damaging and scorching targets in front of you as you leap nearby in the air. Again, jumps and barricades are relatively the same. The main thing it's going to change is your melees and your grenades. And also your aspects and fragments, obviously. Main thing to really get into here, it's a little different with grenades here. There is a defensive grenade that is very useful for Solar Titan. It is called Healing Grenade. If you ever get into a pinch where you really get low on health, you can throw this grenade at the ground to start regeneration for not only you, but also your allies that are affected nearby as well. The entire point of this class is to basically be a tank that can just, well, kill things and continue to get health regeneration. Very useful. Also, to get a really cool exotic that makes their head on fire, but, you know. Why not, right? I love this exotic, even though it is the crutch of Titan's Double Standard. Here's the healing grenade now. You get restoration. Restoration automatically starts the healing process at the top, kind of like in Halo when the bar goes down. Main thing I want to cover here on this class, though, is when you play this class, yes, you will probably lose your hammer some. You'll have to get used to the tracking of it. It'll take a little bit. You too can become a bonking master very quickly. However, I will say, don't do what I do. Don't throw your hammer in the middle of a firefight, miss, stop everything you're doing, and then going to get the hammer. I don't blame any Titan that ever does this because it's the same hive mind mentality that we all do, and I love it. But I just think it's just fun. Just be careful, especially in high-end activities. Don't want you guys to get, hurt because of stuff like that. It'd be rough, especially doing like a one of the higher-end contents where once you die, you have to restart the whole activity. So then finally, after we kind of covered everything here, the other thing I want to notate here too is Radiant. Your weapons are enhanced by the power of the Traveler and do increased damage to foes. Radiant is an ability. Radiant is an ability. It's kind of like how we had the volatile rounds. It's the same idea, except it's all your weapons, not just one. It is a void weapon. Also, scorch stacks are important. The target of Sin's destructive solar light, taking damage over time. Scorch damage increases the target and activates Scorch stacks. After enough Scorch stacks are applied, the target will ignite. When he gets up to so many stacks on an enemy, they will blow up and damage everything around them. Seems pretty similar to Arc, doesn't it? Because, well, it is. Also, my face is orange. There's the screen. Ignition. A large solar explosion will deal damage in an area around the target. Now, this actually does work with some weapon mods, but again, cover that in our video. Not too worried about that. Not weapon mods, armor mods, rather. Won't cover that in this video. Now we have one more class to cover, and that is the Behemoth. Stasis is a very fickle class, just because it doesn't really have a whole lot going for it, other than crowd control, but you can still do some pretty fun stuff with it. Now, for example, I'm going to be actually switching up my armor a little bit here because I really just want to kind of showcase what this class can do. I have an exotic that whenever I turn a barricade, it makes it a wall of ice. And I like to use it for this class. Now, if you notice that it switched to a stasis class, right? This is one of the many interactions. Some weapons, especially primaries and stasis primaries, have the ability of damaging stasis crystals more easily. That's very important. Because you can also put on fragments that allow you to spawn stasis crystals whenever you destroy them. Now, if you notice, this enemy got frozen when he ran into my wall. He took a lot more increased damage than an explosion happened, right? Because of my fragments. Stasis, again, is a very crowd control heavy build for, not build, a very heavy class build for being able to do crowd control, and you can also free some bosses in their place. I swear I will eventually get the terminology right. Don't confuse. Class, build, whatever you want. Now, I can use my melee, right? Totally. Now, the normal melee is just a standard shoulder charge for a punch, right? Now, but if we slide into our melee, what happens? Look at that. Froze the boss. A little mini boss here. Shot the crystals and blew up and immediately killed him. Now, most enemies, bigger enemies, that's not really going to do this. This is my grenade that I like to use. It's called Dustfield Grenade. When enemies walk into this, they stand here for a period of time. They get frozen. You combine this with stuff like this. Now, sometimes I will tell you that the game can bug out with stasis and things like that can happen. That's a prime example. So, when you're on Behemoth and you're being careful, just make sure that you do it at a level where you'll be able to get the maximized amount. Now, again, I will note this. This class, you can only get it, to my knowledge, by beating the Beyond Light campaign. You have to beat the Beyond Light campaign. And to get the fragments for this class and the aspects, you have to do the post-game. I have not done all of them yet, primarily just because I don't necessarily care about it that much, and you can only get 2 a week. You can get them in PvE, PvP, or Gambit, which is the hybrid PvP, PvE mode. I don't recommend that. You will absolutely hate yourself. I don't think Gambit's it's not that bad, but it can be horrible at times. Again, your barricade and your lift, all about the same. Melees, you only get 1, but that's because your fragments and aspects will modify that. Actually, looks like it's just your aspect. And there's only 3 grenades on this class. That's for you to notate here. Another thing I really want to get into as well is that for Titans specifically, there is a thrown melee that you can get that is called it's some sort of javelin, if I'm not mistaken, right? What's it called? Oh gosh, it's a while to remember here. I don't remember, but basically it's a ice javelin that will cause an area of effect when you pick it up and give up. That's the primary thing. Let's see if we can't find that real quick, because I would like to show that off. We have Howl the Storm and Tectonic Harvest active right now. And this right here is just something that's very useful too if you just want to create an ice barricade and run into it, you can absolutely do that. Formant, target, nearby stasis charge track your position. That kind of works similar to other builds that we have. I swear, it's like, it's one of these. Thought it was. I know Titan gets this, I just don't remember which one it is off the top of my head. And sometimes they do walk that class from time to time. They will walk certain things in the game just because of it being too powerful for a certain ability, or someone's found some way to exploit it. And again, frozen, shattered enemies. Frozen enemies will take more damage. And certain weapons do have abilities on them where they will just take more damage from ice crystals in general. Whenever you hit them. So like ice crystals in general take more damage from the primary, right? Now if I shoot this with a grenade launcher, obviously it's gonna blow up, right? Yes, alright, Aaron, what happens if we switch to like another weapon that's not like not primary? We switch to like an energy like primary, right? Cool. Works that way, huh? Sweet. What happens if we switch to like a hand cannon? There's like all sorts of different interactions you can do. Now I do have things on that make it so that I do more damage to stasis crystals with my primaries. Now, obviously, some weapons work better than others. Like, yeah, you're not, I don't think you want to use a linear fusion rifle to destroy stasis crystals. But you get the idea. And you can even pair that too with like a dustfield grenade. Let them get in there, get trapped, and then blow up and and some weapons will obviously be more effective than others than destroying stasis. Now, if you accidentally normal melee there, that is what happens. It's like a charge. It's not as effective. If you want to get a preview of the supers, you can definitely you know, mess around with that and do it. With Behemoth specifically, it's just going to create a boatload of stasis crystals for you to be able to set up running into them. As they run into them, they'll explode. You can also slam enemies into them, basically splattering them and also causing you to get more stasis crystals and do more damage. And when it's over, you can shoot all these stasis crystals to get more, you guessed it, stasis energy. And keep the whole build running. And if you ever switch back to the light class, you can absolutely do that at any point in time. And yeah, that's about it, honestly. There's not really a whole lot more to tell on that. But I hope you guys did enjoy my video today. I do appreciate, you know, you guys sticking around if you're still around. It means a lot to me. Dealing with a lot of personal issues. We're not really getting too much into it. But hey, thanks for y'all sticking by. And we'll definitely be back with some more funny haha videos later. I probably will keep these videos to maybe, I'll probably do a couple. Just probably shotgun a couple of them out there to get them out there. The next video we're going to be covering is going to be Hunter. Kind of how they play, their whole thing. I'll leave them kind of clumped up, so whichever one you want to watch, you can choose to watch. Entirely up to you. I'm not going to, you know, be like, hey, here's like this whole structured thing. I may even mix it up a little bit too and just kind of go through that whole line. Do all the classes first. Talk about weapon mods. Talk about armor mods. Talk about weapons in general and kind of the different interactions and kind of how those whole things work. Because I feel like Destiny doesn't do a really good job explaining a lot of this anymore. Because the new player experience is not that great. And I would like more people to get into the game. And we'll even talk about a video on some of their controversies and things that have kind of had some issues with the game. But still things that I enjoy. But hey, that's it for now. And hey, eyes up, Guardians. See you in the next video. Peace.